All right, let's get started. So you are at Design Rich Inputs and Outputs for Agents. So before I get started, you've probably seen this slide before, but I want to remind you that Salesforce is a publicly traded company. You shouldn't make any purchasing decisions based on any forward-looking statements that I make in this presentation, or ever. First, I want to thank you all for being here. It's 8:30, right? You're up here early for this session. That's awesome. I also want to thank everyone who's watching on Salesforce Plus. So thank you for being here. My name is Charles Watkins, and I'm a lead developer advocate at Salesforce. So I get to build really cool stuff with Salesforce, learn about all the new cutting-edge technologies, and then help other people implement it to solve real-world problems. So if you're here, you're probably here because you've heard about these agents things. Maybe you've been told to implement one. Maybe you're using one. Maybe you've already implemented an Agentforce implementation. And there are real reasons why you would want to do it, because it's a very promising technology, right? There's some real benefits to AI agents. They have flexible reasoning, and so these AI agents can adapt to user requests and questions on the fly. They handle all interactions within the context of the messages sent to them, as well as the messages that they send to the user, so their responses are always very personalized. And because they're AI agents and it's all contextual, you have this type of automation that is very context-driven, that feels very, very much embedded in what the problem happens to be. And so lots of people want to build these AI agents. Now, the way this works, and you may have seen the slide before, but just in case you need an Agentforce 101, here's how agents work. At the very top level, you have a large language model and a reasoning engine. In our case, Agentforce is pretty much LLM agnostic. We can switch them as necessary, but what we do have is an Atlas reasoning engine. And what this thing does is it understands user intent. And then from there, it essentially classifies the user's question into one of a few topics that has been defined for the agent. So you have the agent, you send it a question, it looks to see if it has a topic that's related to its question. For example, if you have an agent that handles reservations, you might have a reservation management topic. Now within the topic will be actions. And these are Apex methods, these are auto-launch flows, these are prompt templates that the agent can use to help solve the problem. So if it's reservation management, maybe you have an Apex method that sends a request to your booking management system so that you can modify, create, or delete bookings. All right? So that's Agentforce 101. But if you've ever used agents, you know that while it's a very promising technology, it has some hiccups. When you're dealing with text-only UI, it can quickly devolve into Q&A. So let's say you are trying to book a reservation, right? You say, I want to book a reservation at this restaurant at this time. If that time's not available, now you have to restart the flow. The problem with text-driven UI is that it's very implicit. Traditional UIs are very information-dense. But with text, the only information you get is what's in the text. And so conversational UI can occasionally have some hiccups. Now, when I talk about this, oftentimes what someone says is, hey, OK, so AI agents, they do text. But they can also write code, right? Coding agents are a thing. LLMs can write code. So why don't you just tell the agent to render HTML on the fly? Just like put a form dynamically in there, because they're great at coding. Well, there are 4 big problems for this for the enterprise, OK? First is accessibility. If you're in a regulated industry, your apps need to be accessible, and you cannot certify, you can't certify markup that's generated on the fly, so you don't know if it's accessible. The second is consistency. If you have an AI agent generate HTML on the fly, it'll look slightly different every single conversation. Not great for brand. Your marketing team won't like it. The fourth is validity. AI agents are great at coding, but occasionally they write code that doesn't work. They write code that does work, but is logically inconsistent. So you can imagine an AI agent, it needs to generate a form, it misses out a field. Now it doesn't work. And then the last one is the most fun, security. So if you have AI agents writing code, that is a cross-site scripting attack surface. So your security team will be mad at you. So generative UI for the enterprise, not great. But there is a better way, okay? So instead of just using text, which is not particularly information dense, instead of using generative UI, which has a bunch of different problems, accessibility, right, security, right, consistency, validity, instead of doing either one of those two, you take what agents are really good at, which is orchestration. They're good at understanding intent. They're good at understanding what to do in context, right? So you say, okay, agent, you're adaptable, so you're going to do the adaptability. You're going to figure out what you need to do. You're great at reasoning, right? So if I give you some tools, you generally know how to use them to solve a problem, okay? And they are incredibly context aware, right? So you say, okay, let the agent do that part. Let the agent do the orchestration part. But when it comes to rendering information that is important, like say you need to collect information and you need to render a form, right? You leave that to traditional UI. Or if you want to do search for an AI agent, you want to have like an AI agent that can do product search, you don't want to just show like a bunch of product information. You probably want to show pictures and stuff like that, right? So you have the UI do that. And the benefit to this approach, to letting agents do orchestration and UI components do display, is that your UI part is deterministic. It always looks the same. It's always valid. You can test it because you already wrote it. And it's going to have your brand because, again, you built it. So there's a way to do this on Salesforce, and it's called custom lightning types. OK, so today, at the keynote, you're going to hear about a thing, OK? I'm not going to blow it up for you. I'm not going to tell you what it is. But I'm going to tell you that it's built on custom lightning types. And I might show you one slide that gives you a bit of a preview. But this is probably one of the most important things you can learn. And we're going to talk all about it over the next few minutes. But essentially, what custom lightning types are is a type of metadata inside of Salesforce. And they allow you to inject pre-made Lightning Web Components in agent conversations. And what they essentially do is they let you take a Lightning Web Component and take some data that might come from an agent action and just tie them together, essentially. Custom Lightning types come in two different flavors. So there are custom Lightning types that just display. And those are the ones you're going to use a lot. Like if you want to display product information, if you want to display reviews, if you want to display pictures, you can use what's called a renderer. The other custom Lightning type is for data inputs, for forms. And they're called editors. And you can use these custom Lightning types to inject Lightning Web Components in agent conversations for both internal employee agents, so those are the agents that run inside of Salesforce, as well as service agents that might be on an Experience Cloud site or even a custom-built site hosted on Heroku. And so by using custom Lightning types, you can get the flexibility of AI via Agentforce, as well as the predictability, the testability of Lightning Web Components. So I want to show you, because I've been doing a lot of talking, but I want to show you what I mean. So on the before, this is what a typical agent conversation looks like. Now, what's going on in this conversation is we have an employee agent on the left-hand side, and this is the same employee agent, but one with custom lightning types and one without it, and we're just asking for a health check of an opportunity. Now, on that left-hand side, you look at it, it's hard to read. All the information's there, but it's not formatted. It's not rendered in any way that helps you understand what you're looking at. The after is a Lightning Web component that we've created, that I created, right? So that when I want to look at an opportunity, I can get a good understanding of it at just like a quick look, right? And so before, text. After, beautiful card where I can see what needs analysis, I can see the opportunity amount, and I have a next step as well as some actions that I can take, some buttons that I can click on to take action, right? And so this is a much richer, much more powerful way to render information inside of your agent conversations. And so a new way to think about Agentforce conversations is this. You have your agent brain, you have the Agentforce reasoning engine, the Atlas reasoning engine, to help classify user intent. You have topics, which just help classify the different jobs and personas that the agent can take. Within those topics, you have actions, which are going to be automations like invocable Apex methods, prompt templates. And then, for each one of those actions, you're going to have a CLT, a custom lightning type. That's a component that can render the information that comes out of that component, or render a form to collect information to run that action, okay? And so now you have a very layered approach, where you have reasoning at the top, organization of different things the agent can do in the middle, actions and automations, tools that it can call to solve problems, and at the bottom layer, you have a nice visual layer where you can render data. All right, so I'm going to do a quick demo. I want to show you what it looks like live. All right, so I built an AI agent here for a fictional company called Pronto. So Pronto is something like a hybrid of like Uber Eats and let's say OpenTable. One of the things you can do with Pronto is if you are a customer, you can go to their Agentforce and start a conversation and ask about the different restaurants that Pronto serves. And you can ask to book a reservation or find restaurants that Pronto happens to serve. And so we are going to start by doing something that's really hard with AI agents if you ever tried it, which is search. Search is hard with AI agents because search is very dense. Imagine if you have a bunch of results. So what I'm going to do is I am in the mood for Italian food. So I'm going to say, do you have any Italian restaurants? Okay. Now the agent's going to classify my question. I have a topic for reservation management and finding restaurants. And in the background, it executed an action where it searched for all the different Pronto restaurants that exist inside of my Salesforce org. And rather than just rendering blank information, I have this nice Lightning Web component that has all of the results from its search, right? Now, this is one component. Italian is great, but maybe I want to try something else. Maybe I want some comfort food. I want comfort food. Let's say that. Do another search. And this time, I should get a few restaurants. And because this is a Lightning Web component that I built, I can control the rendering. So if it's just one, I'll have one card. If it's multiple, I can have a carousel. Really powerful stuff. All right, great. So we've implemented a powerful search Lightning Web component that lets us see multiple different results where we can see the picture, we can see the rating, we can see the categories, the address, all that stuff in a way that's easy to understand and glance at. A much better user experience. All right, so the savory spot looks good. I don't know, what do y'all think? Savory spot or Munch Central? Nobody has an opinion? I'm going to go with Munch Central then. All right. Okay, let's say Munch Central Knox looks good. I want to make a reservation. And I have a misspelling, but it doesn't really matter with AI agents. They'll figure it out. All right, great. So here's where it gets really great. So because we're using, again, we have ourselves another custom Lightning component. And this is a form, which means that I have validation. If I try and do something, if I try and submit it without a field, it'll show an error, which is really nice. So I'm going to go ahead here and book my reservation, submit it. And when it's done, I'll get a nice brand-aligned card. And that's it. Now, you won't have these types of graphics for everything, but for actions, for information that your agents need to render that either should have a brand like this card here, or are very information-rich like this carousel here. So if you're doing product search, or if you're submitting a form where the agent needs a lot of information, these are all very, very useful. All right. Cool. So let's talk about how to build these things. So I showed you the demo. Let's talk about how to build it. All right. So here are the keys to a custom Lightning type, okay? The first is you need an Apex data class. So custom Lightning types essentially just tie an Apex-defined data class or an object-defined data class. You can do that too, but generally it's going to be an Apex-defined data class. They tie it to a Lightning Web component. So you can only override custom Apex data classes. You can't override like a string, okay? So you need an Apex data class. The second thing you need is an agent action. So the agent action is the tool that lets Agentforce call an Apex method to book a reservation or search for restaurants or really anything, right? It's the tools that the agent uses. So you need an agent action. Third thing you need is the Lightning Web component. That's the visual display. So the carousel you saw, the form you saw, the reservation card, those were all Lightning Web components. And then the fourth is the Lightning type bundle. That's the custom Lightning type metadata, okay? So you just need these four things. Now, this layered wiring helps you keep a clean separation of concerns because your agent handles the orchestration, your Apex handles the data shape and the business logic, and the Lightning Web component handles the experience. All right? And this is from the great Mohith, who happens to be my teammate. Really smart guy. Go watch his talks too. So let's talk about how to build an editor custom Lightning type. So 90% of to collect inputs, or a renderer, which is just a card to display outputs, it's 90% the same. So we'll go deep on this example, and then we'll talk about the differences later. OK, so you're going to start with your data layer, right? You need the Apex class. So you're going to have an Apex class, and it's going to be like a data transfer object. It's going to be really, really simple. It won't do anything, right? It just defines a data shape. And you're going to want it to be invocable variable to expose it to Agentforce, right? So let's say that for our example, we have a data class to collect reservation details. We're just going to call it reservation request, okay? So that's our data shape, reservation request. The next thing you need to do is to just create a Lightning Web component for that data class. So we would have another component let's call it reservation form, right? And this is just going to be a form that collects the data for reservation requests. So if you need a name and a phone number, it's going to have fields for names and phone numbers. And essentially, this Lightning Web Component is going to have an API value, a property, that's going to take in, that's essentially going to dispatch events that are the same shape as the reservation request. So as people type in the fields, you'll have event handlers, and it'll just send the current value of the name or the phone number, okay? So the next step is just going to be to create the custom Lightning type. So to do this, you're going to build a Lightning type bundle, okay? Now, Lightning type bundles have two pieces. The first one is the schema. And the schema just tells Salesforce what is the data shape. And this is going to point to your Apex class, all right? The one that defines your data shape. The second one is going to be an editor.json, if it's an editor, right? And that one is going to point to your LWC. And so really what this custom Lightning type is, it's literally just glue. It just says for this data type from Apex, if you have this data type, render this Lightning Web Component. And that's it. Now once you've done this, there's one extra step. And this always catches people. This used to trip me up. You need to make sure that your Lightning Web Component that you build, it'll be a normal Lightning Web Component. But you need to make sure that you target Lightning Agentforce input. That means it's going to render inside of Agentforce, right? And people can input information, right? And then you'll just want to set the target type to whatever your Lightning type bundle name happens to be. I'm going to give you a QR code to the docs, but just be kind of generally aware of this, right? Now, to make this actually available to Agentforce, you're going to need to actually configure the action that you're using, that you want to have to display like a form, right? At the time of this talk, there are two ways to build agents, right? So there's agent script, and there's the current builder. So on the left-hand side, agent script, you just need to make sure that the complex data type is set to the custom Lightning type bundle name. In the current agent builder, you can actually just click a drop down and set it to the Lightning type editor name. So C reservation editor and reservation editor are the same. C underscore is the API name. That's what you're going to use in agent script. And then reservation editor is the real name. So it's the same. And you also want to make sure that it's always required and that it's displayable. Displayable just means that Agentforce is going to just display it. If you don't set displayable, it won't show up every single time. So make sure you have this configuration. It's the source of a good amount of problems. All right. Let's talk about building a renderer. So editors are how you accept information. Renderers are how you output information. So that's how I built the carousel. That's how I built the confirmation card, right? When you want to render information, we want to show it. So let's talk about displaying data with style. Okay. So remember when I said that custom Lightning types, whether you're doing an editor to accept information or a renderer to show information, it's 90% the same? I really mean that. So you're going to have your Apex class that's going to define the data shape of your output, right? And then you're going to have your Lightning Web Component that is going to render the data from that output. And the only thing you really need to do is make sure that your Lightning Web Component is read-only, so it shouldn't be submitting data, it shouldn't mutate anything. And it should have a property, API property, that essentially has the exact same shape as your Apex class output. So you just build your Apex class and an LWC for it, and it just kind of works. And from there, it's just a question of wiring them up. So in the middle, you're going to have your custom lightning type bundle. And you're going to have your schema. Schema defines the data shape. Okay? So that's your data shape. And then you're going to have a renderer.json because it's a renderer, and that defines the UI shape. So you have this nice little layer there where it just glues them together. And you're going to deploy it, make your change in your agent action, and you're done. That's it. Okay. So again, this one's worth taking a picture of. Again, make sure you change your metadata. Internally, I answer questions about this all the time. If your lightning type doesn't work, oftentimes this is the problem. You forgot to change your metadata on your Lightning web component. So make sure to do this. All right. A few things about custom Lightning types, okay? And some of these things aren't written anywhere. They're implicit, so I'm going to just call them out. The first is that you can use custom Lightning types with flows. Now, every example that you see online is going to be a custom Lightning type that uses Apex, and only Apex. But you can use a custom Lightning type with a flow. There's only one thing you have to do. You have to make sure that the flow's input is an Apex-defined input. That's it. Then you can use it if you're accepting an input. Or the output is an Apex-defined output. Something needs to be Apex-defined, okay, if you're going to do it with a flow. Another thing, custom Lightning types don't work with enhanced chat, v1. Has anyone heard of enhanced chat, by the way? Okay, I see a few of you. If you haven't heard of enhanced chat, you might have heard of messaging for in-app and web. Has anyone heard of that one? Okay, that's what enhanced chat v1 is. We changed the name, and then we got a new version. So if you want to use custom Lightning types for a service agent, yeah. Okay, that one's really important. If your component doesn't render, and it's a service agent, redeploy your metadata, and redeploy your enhanced chat v2. If your editor doesn't submit data, make sure that the editor is actually dispatching events. You can see examples of that in the docs. And if your renderer doesn't show data, make sure that your API object has the same field as your Apex object. And if all else fails, this is probably the most important part of this talk, just use Agentforce vibes. I'm serious. Like if you can't, like if there's actually a skill in Agentforce vibes that comes out of the box, and there's also an MCP tool that's in beta. So if you have a Lightning web component and you have an Apex class, you can just open Agentforce vibes, say, hey, I want a custom Lightning type for these two things, and it'll just do it for you. You don't even have to really know what's going on. It'll figure it out for you. It's really nice. Okay. So brief recap. Here's how you create custom Lightning types here's how you create rich UIs with custom Lightning types, okay? So the first thing you want to do, build an Apex class with an Apex-defined input or output. It can be an Apex method, or it can be a flow. Build your Lightning web component for the custom Lightning type. This is what you want to display inside of Agentforce. Create the custom Lightning type bundle. Remember, that's going to have a schema that points to the data and a renderer or editor JSON file that points to the component. And then just deploy it and update the agent action, and you're done. That's really it. Now, this is pretty new, but custom Lightning types are going to be used more and more, and during the keynote, you'll hear a little bit about it. because the future of the platform is Agentforce everywhere. And in order to support that, we're going to need some way to deploy Agentforce rich UIs across all of these different surfaces. And the way that works is with custom lightning types. And so you're going to see a new unified experience model today at the keynote. And it's going to use custom lightning types as the foundation of rendering rich UI across different places, not just Agentforce conversations, but places like Slack, places like ChatGPT, and other external clients like that. And if you would like to learn more, please do check out this QR code. It'll take you to the docs. Now, there are lots of docs. This is the best docs for custom lightning types. There's probably like 2 different sets of them floating out there, but this one will walk you through the structure of the bundles as well as through a few examples that go really in depth about how to build them and how they work under the hood.